Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. It is a big day. We have a big guest. Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti. Coach Cigs, the Hoosiers are 6-0. And they're playing Nebraska this weekend. Huge game. Nebraska is playing for bowl eligibility. Their first time being bowl eligible since 2016. So huge stakes in that game. Ari Wasserman, cannot wait to talk to Coach Cigs because I cannot believe the job he's done.
Yeah, it's a nice little lesson. If you want us to talk about your team more, then winning is a pretty good cure. It was great to have him on. It's awesome to imagine the possibilities of a team that you don't really imagine a lot. And they're legitimately very good. This isn't just like, oh, they happen to go 6-0 and, they just are about to play the back half of their schedule and get their doors blown off. Like, I actually believe that this is a team that, can finish with one loss or potentially contend for one of those final spots in the college football playoff this year.
It is a great story. And to hear how he went about turning it around as quickly as he did is utterly fascinating. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up shortly. Little bit of news to cover before we talk to Curt Cignetti. The Lanning loophole. We talked about it yesterday. Dan Lanning intentionally put 12 men on the field against Ohio State with the hope that the extra man would help ensure there was not a big play. Got flagged for it, but it took precious seconds off the clock, and that was done on purpose. It is an homage to the Buddy Ryan Polish goal line from the 90s. Well, Ari, the NCAA is working fast. It appears they will be closing the Lanning loophole. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo talked to Steve Shaw, the national coordinator of officials. Our Pete Nakos at On 3 talked to sources within the NCAA. It sounds like they're going to close it. And in a way we talked about yesterday, right? I mentioned this. Maybe there's a way the refs can just put the time back on the clock. Apparently they do have that latitude. So if they feel like the penalty was committed on purpose, they can just put the time back on the clock.
Super exciting for future discussions about trying to prove intent. That's going to be fun. As if reviews aren't enough, like, how are you ever going to be able to prove that it was intentional? And I was just like laughing and thinking about it. Like, if Lanning would have just played dumb and pretended like it wasn't, like, he might not be getting, everybody talking about how much of a genius he is, but maybe he would have been able to keep it going. But I bet he didn't consider that they would change the rule or look into that rule. But you know what this kind of reminds me of, Andy? And like, this is like something that I've seen on Twitter from a lot of people, like using the word cheating. It kind of reminds me of like in basketball when a team is quote unquote cheating or committing an infraction to extend the clock by fouling at the end of a game. Like, it's within the realm of the rules. And I don't really find it to be anything other than a really good coaching move. Like, I don't know if you disagree with that, but like, I don't know.
If the rules allow you to do it and you're smart enough to figure out how the rules allow you to get away with something, that's just smart. Like, that is literally your job.
Yeah.
So, that's your job. Now, it is their job as the people who run the officiating program to figure out if you gained an advantage using the rule that was not done in a way that the rule was intended to be used, then yeah, they're supposed to fix it. So I have no problem with them fixing it, but I also have no problem with him doing it. So
kind of like
just means he's going to find another way to do it.
Stephen Wilson here in the chat actually said it better than I did. It's like fouling when you're up by 3 with a few seconds left to prevent them from getting up a 3. Like, that's, to me, it's like you're committing an infraction to gain an advantage, and that's coaching. So, we'll see how this goes, but I thought that he deserves to be praised for this, not criticized.
Yeah, I love that producer Rivers throwing Dan Hurley pictures up there. I'm a huge foul up 3 guy, massive foul up 3 guy. Like, dude, always foul up 3.
Pretty slick on his toes move for River there too, to have that ready, all popped out, ready to go.
He doesn't play, and we know Dan Hurley fouls up 3. Although he's rarely up 3 at the end of the game. He's usually up by 27, so it's a little bit easier for him. But that was quick. I was thinking maybe they do that in the offseason, but apparently it is within the realm of within the purview of the referee during the game to, 1, diagnose the intent, and 2, add those extra seconds back to the clock. So
it is funny though, Andy, because it's such a small thing. Like you don't see that very often, right? Like that, I haven't seen that in how many years. But
Ari, it's even if it was 4 seconds, and it was a little more than that, but even if it was 4 seconds, if there's 4 seconds left on the clock when Will Howard slides,
sure,
he calls timeout, and they have a makeable field goal. They might not have made it, but they had a makeable field goal attempt to win the game. So it made all the difference.
It did, absolutely. Yeah, that there's no question about it. And I just will repeat what I said on the show yesterday, Andy, which is if you are a coach who drills circumstantial or hypothetical situations in your practice, and you have the frame of mind to make that call and not only just make it, but execute it with your personnel who know what to do, I think it's really savvy. So we'll see what goes on with the rules moving forward, but Oregon earned that win, and that was all part of it.
Zach in the chat, he has a different basketball analogy. It's not fouling up 3. It is running into the court without a scorer's table buzz and playing defense. That would be funny. Let's see if Dan Hurley pulls that.
What would happen?
I think there's probably a more significant penalty for a 6th man on the court.
I've actually thought about this before. Like, what would happen if you're playing football and there's like 10 seconds left and somebody is running toward the end zone and they're about to score the go-ahead game-winning touchdown, and somebody on the bench just tackled them?
This has happened.
What happened? I don't know. What like somebody just like trips him or something. Like,
I mean, the person gets ejected. There's a penalty. It's it was a too much. It's the where the phrase "too much Bama" comes from. It's 1954, Alabama against Rice in the Cotton Bowl, and one of the Alabama players on the sideline tackled a Rice player who was running down the sideline. And he got asked afterward. I don't know if it was immediately after the game, but he said, "I just had too much Bama in me."
But I would take an ejection and a penalty if it stopped the touchdown.
It does stop, right? Right, and that's I feel like you should. If you're a DB who's beating the end zone down the field, always commit pass interference. Always,
yeah,
because then they have to run a play to score at least.
Yeah, it just kind of reminds me of that like basketball scene at the beginning where they combine like 5 sports and the outfielder gets tackled by a defensive lineman in the outfield. I don't know. It just when you think that this game can't offer any more grab ass, Andy, it always delivers. And this is the latest thing. And this time I will call it savvy, smart, genius grab ass.
So Alabama's Tommy Lewis tackled Rice's Dickie Magle in the Cotton Bowl. Dickie Magle was just running away and got tackled by a dude off the sideline. So, yeah. Lanning could have gone with the too much Oregon defense. I guess that would work.
It literally was too much Oregon. It was
too much. It was too much Oregon. Yeah. Literally too much. One too many Oregons. So one too many ducks. You know what he should have said to the official? Quack.
Quack, 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 Mr. Ducksworth. The thing too is if they didn't change the rule and people try to do this all the time, that also would open up offenses to be prepared for it and being more savvy, spiking the ball and people losing a game because of it too. There's the other side of it is like Ohio State got caught off guard because people don't do this. But if people started doing it, you would be prepared for it in a different way. And Oregon could have lost if Will Howard spiked the ball. They moved it 5 yards. They ran another play. They had a timeout and they could have kicked the field goal as well. So there is a risk involved in that.
So Zach in the chat says it wasn't enough that Lanning had to win by abusing the rule book, but he had to brag about it too, and he ruined it. There is that. Like, maybe don't admit it, and they don't immediately move to change it.
Well, Lanning gained a lot of street cred with that. You can't.
That he did. He definitely did.
Don't kiss and tell when you're 20, but if she's amazing, you want to tell everybody, right? That's I don't know if that's a good analogy or not.
Advertise.
Yeah.
She might be embarrassed that you were involved, but you're not embarrassed that she was involved.
We could be that mistake. Okay.
That's exactly right. Exactly. All right, Ari, one more thing before we get to Curt Cignetti. We're going to stay in the Big Ten. You mentioned Dan Lanning and his street cred. Well, Jordan Mott has the most street cred of all among Penn State fans. Jordan Mott is the Penn State fan who paid for a special ticket package to run onto the field with the USC football team. He did it in Penn State gear. Ari, imagine if this happened like this weekend. Alabama's playing Tennessee in in Knoxville. Imagine someone paid Tennessee, and someone has paid Tennessee to run through the T before. It's a much larger donation than the $1,500 to $1,800 it costs at USC. But someone's done it. But they didn't do it in the opposite team's colors. They did it in Tennessee gear because they were a Tennessee booster. Imagine someone trying to run through the T at Tennessee in Alabama gear. That person might get murdered.
Andy, I don't know if it's just me, but the fact that he's also wearing a tank top makes it funnier to me. Like, it's like such a casual, like, not only are you wearing the opposing team's logo and colors running out the tunnel, but like you're doing it in such like a blasé way because the tank top is just like, I'm here to party. You know what I mean? It's so funny. And the other thing too is that it's a pretty good idea for USC. Like, I don't know if you can restrict what people wear, but like,
is it a good idea though? Because this tells me you're an unserious football program. Like, the AD at Tennessee would get fired for this. Like, if this happened at Tennessee, or if this happened at Alabama, or if this happened at Ohio State, they would literally get fired the next day.
They would be fired?
They would be fired, yes.
You think they would be fired? I don't know.
They would be fired.
Andy, how many people were running? It looked
like a solid dozen.
Okay, so you're going to make 15 G's of income a game to have people run out of the tunnel? Maybe you just add the restriction in there. I think it's a great idea. Like, any way that your program...
Well, you add the restriction. You should have added a restriction. Like, when the dude showed up, you should have been like, no. We'll refund your money, sir.
And the GoPro, too. Like, whoever recorded that. Whoa! Like, yeah, like, listen.
Jordan had to think there's no way they're going to let me do this. Like,
I think he talked to Audrey Snyder from The Athletic, and she was tweeting out some quotes last night. And he said that like people were mean mugging him in the tunnel, and he thought he was going to get his ass kicked, which is like would it be the funniest way that a player.
But see, the thing is, in the SEC, he would have gotten his ass kicked. Like, that's why we know that USC is an unserious football program. Like, in the SEC or in other quarters of the Big Ten, at Penn State or at Ohio State or at Michigan, he literally would have gotten his ass beat before he could do this. But I'm just imagining being Jordan in the tunnel, like, they're really going to let me do this? And when he starts running with the GoPro, the look on his face is like, I cannot believe I'm getting away with this.
It's the tank top, dude. Am I alone? Or like, is it the tank top is such a casual,
listen,
like
Jordan hadn't been skipping shoulder days.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's jacked, so good for him.
Yeah.
But it's just like the fact that he's just wearing a Penn State tank top makes it so much funnier. Yeah, no, that's crazy. That's crazy. It's great.
So
and you
beautiful.
know what? Let me encourage you guys, if you're listening, or any college football fan that might be out there that is inspired to do stuff. Keep doing stuff like this. This is what this is what we want. Like, I mean, it's okay. Hilarity is a good thing for the soul. I think that is hilarious.
This is the best part of the sport. This is like the people who got mad at us about Nick Roush yesterday going off on Nico and calling him a volleyball player, which he does play volleyball or did play volleyball. But they got like, you guys don't realize that. Don't you realize that On3 ranked Nico the #1 quarterback recruit in his class? But yes, that actually makes it funnier. Like, that doesn't take away from the hilarity of what Nick said, which had no place in a discussion of Kentucky football. But
yeah,
I don't even know. Funnier.
I mean, it's been 24 hours since that bomb got dropped on this show, and I don't even know where it came from. Like, I mean, like, we weren't even talking about Tennessee.
Nick was in the kitchen. It's like our pals at Wendy's when they're making the spicy ghost pepper sauce. Like, Nick was in the kitchen stirring that up and stirring and just waiting for the time that he could unleash it upon the world. And that was his time.
I'm happy you brought up Wendy's because I've got some sauce for you today, pal. I don't know if
it is
ready.
A Wendy's Sauciest Take Wednesday, and we will have Ari's 3 saucy takes a little bit later in the show. I will be the one determining which one is the spicy ghost pepper of those takes. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about HUEL, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. This is my breakfast for this morning, by the way. Over 400 million meals sold worldwide. Yes, you heard that right. 400 million. And HUEL is trusted by millions of people looking to fuel their days with convenient, complete nutrition. Try it for yourself. 15% off with the code STAPLES at HUEL.com. That's HUEL.com. This bottle, 400 calories, 35 grams of protein, everything I need to get my day started perfectly. 15% off. Use that code STAPLES at HUEL.com, HUEL.com. Okay. I'm seeing in the chat some argument about Indiana. Some people saying, I looked at the first part of their schedule. They haven't played anybody yet. Look at the scores, everybody. They're destroying people. It's not a fluke. Now, are they going to go undefeated? I don't know. But this is not a fluke, Ari.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Maryland, like went undefeated, 5-0, 6-0, like 6 years in a row. I felt like, and it just you kind of knew when October came that things were going to fly off the rails. Now, you know, Andy, it has to be said that I don't know that I would put Indiana in my playoff projections yet if they had to play Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State in the back half of their schedule. They don't. Okay, so they
play one.
They play one of them, but they don't play all three of them. And Michigan is going to be a game. Nebraska this weekend could be a game. It's a game they could lose this weekend, right? Washington isn't a pushover. They put up a lot of yards on offense.
Even like, at Michigan State is one that you still have to worry about it. Yeah.
If you're thinking about Indiana in the old realm of Indiana, like half the schedule is losable. But it's not like they are going to be put into a place where they're playing overmatched teams they probably just can't beat right now at this part of the development of the program. So, like, fluke? No, not a fluke. I think they're just legitimately really good. And two, they don't play anybody who's elite except Ohio State this year. And who knows what could happen in that grab ass of a game if things go that. I mean, I remember during COVID, Indiana put up like 450 yards on Ohio State when they had Michael Penix and they were really good. So like you never know. So yeah, I'm happy that they are here on the show, but we don't just invite everybody that we think is going to be or that we think is fluky on the show. Like there's a reason for this. And it's not just about
this ain't fluky.
Playoff. It's
also
also about
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Like it's also about having a coach that actually believes he can build something long-term at Indiana that's respectable where 6-0 isn't a joke to people. Like 6-0 is expected. Like they might not ever be, Alabama, but that doesn't determine whether it's a failure or a success. What's a success is if Indiana is a consistent bowl team that, has a chance to rise up every 5-6 years and win 10, 11 games. Like he can do that, I think.
Let's find out how he did this so quickly. Here's Curt Cignetti. Honored to be joined by Curt Cignetti of Indiana, a man who has not even trailed yet this season. But I know you talked to your team about when that actually might happen. What? You got the cigs for Coach Sigs?
Oh, come on now.
I'm smoking cigs, baby. You're gonna put one right. I'm gonna put one right there.
Here, I do not endorse smoking. But anyway,
no. See, there you go.
I went to the gas station today because I don't endorse smoking either, and I said, "Give me your cheapest pack of cigarettes for a prop," because I'm just pumped that you're here. I'm pumped about Indiana football, and I'm pumped about the direction of the program. So, Andy, I didn't mean to hijack you here, but it's just great to have you here, Coach.
Well, it's good to be here.
I'll go back to what I was talking about, where y'all have not trailed. But I imagine that's going to happen at some point this season. How much does it matter that you have a bunch of guys who started either at the Power 4 level or at the Group of 5 level in other places in their careers for when that moment comes?
Well, I think it comes down more to your culture and your team identity, which is made up of people. And obviously having a nucleus from JMU helped facilitate the culture. And then a lot of the transfers we brought in came from winning programs, bowl programs, teams that had been successful, 2-3 year starters. And the guys that stayed were the right kind of guys that had a chip on their shoulder. So, no, we have not trailed. You're right. But, as a coach, you're preparing your team for every situation. And, I mean, how are you going to respond when you're 2 scores down, 3 scores down? Because we've had teams come back and win games that were 4 scores down on the road in the second quarter. Same token, how are you going to respond when you're 2 scores up, 3 scores up, because the response should be the same. You're totally focused, poised, resilient, in the moment, one play at a time, nothing, not affected by success or failure on the next play. But when you're in a situation where you're down, you don't want to see that anxiety or frustration on the sideline. And so, you do your best to prepare guys for that situation. Like you said, we have not been behind, but I'd rather be in the situation we're in now than to never be ahead.
Coach, you're in a position where you have this team in a place that, it hasn't been in quite some time, right? Like since the Beatles were releasing records. Mm-hmm. And you're sending out emails telling, fans to get over to the stadium. They can, put off studying and to be there when you guys beat Maryland. When, like the future confidence, the ability to, assert that you are going to accomplish things on a level that hasn't, been really common there. How do you express and find that confidence at a place where a lot of people thought it was impossible? And 2, what's it been like fostering all the enthusiasm and excitement, and not just, with your team, but the campus?
Right. Yeah. Well, I had a lot of confidence coming in because I'd had so much success as a head coach, I guess. And I felt like I had done this kind of turnaround 2 or 3 times already. So it's just doing it on a bigger stage. And I thought it was important that I set an expectation level when I first got here. I realized I went out on a limb on a few comments, but I just detected the first day I was here how kind of a feeling of hopelessness that, it can't get done here once I was here. And I felt like I had to get people excited right off the bat. Now, those are just words, but portray that confidence and expectation level that this is what we're going to do. So, it's a process one day at a time, obviously, because you got to change the way people think. That starts with your team and then everybody on the outside too. You're really going to change the way people think, if you win football games. You win one game, you got more belief and confidence as a team, and you get the fans, a little bit more excited. And so, every success has built upon the other. And when you talk about building a program, it's not only what you do between the white lines, but it's the support, from your alumni and your fan base too are critically important. We played the opening game against FIU. I thought we had a pretty good crowd when the game started. Come out at halftime, half the people had left. We had a 2-3 score lead. I like, what's going on here? But it's gotten better every single game. And I made a comment in my press conference about it afterwards. And, we're sold out Saturday. We're sold out 2 weeks from now, 2 at home or 3. So at the end of the day, you got to produce only to grow and build. And we're trying to grow every facet of this program.
So I've heard you say that a lot since you got this job of change the way people think. Is that an ever-evolving process? Because you've got a team now that clearly expects to win when they take the field. What's the next step in terms of changing the way they think to keep them developing into what you ultimately want them to be?
The next step is have a great day today. I mean, you're always working on what's going on between people's ears because 90% of this game this time of year is mental. And you got to deal with success, or you got to deal with failure or complacency. And, we're coming off an off week. Guys have had a couple of days off. We got to get back in the groove, get the edge, prepare, put the time in, the effort, have energy at practice, be detailed to give ourselves the best chance of success on Saturday. So, to me, you never arrive. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You never stay the same. And if you're not striving towards something getting better, then somebody's catching you. So in theory, you're getting worse. So it's a process all the time.
You mentioned at the beginning something that I thought was interesting when it came to reading the room or getting a feeling when you first got to Indiana, and you used the word hopelessness. And I think it's easy to analyze, Indiana as a job and other jobs as having a higher, step or a steeper hill to climb to get to a certain place. But before you took this job and decided to go to a place that is perceived to be a basketball school, is in a state that isn't as highly densely populated from a talent standpoint as some other states that you're going to be competing against, like, what did you find attractive about Indiana? What did you think the ceiling was going to be there? And when I ask you this big picture stuff as you're 6-0, but like, what is the actual ceiling for this Indiana program in your mind? Like, when you get to the top, what does it look like at Indiana?
Well, look, I firmly believe this. Any P4 program with the right commitment from the top, the administration, and support can be successful. That's how it is. You know, most of these places in the top, let's say 15 or so, have had their down years, have had their up years. There were, you know, you look at when Bill Snyder went to Kansas State, now it's a while ago, you know, they were the losingest team in college football history. And, you know, he rattled off about 6, 7, 9+ win years in a row. And, you know, there's been other people. Oregon hadn't always been a great football team. Now they have in recent history. So, you know, you just need to have the proper commitment from the top and the right people in place in your organization, a blueprint and a plan. So, you know, I knew Indiana, the Big Ten TV contract that they signed 1.5 years or 2 years ago really caught my eye at the time. I'd played here a couple times, 1987 when I was at Rice, and 2000 at NC State. Thought it was a beautiful place. Being the son of a coach, I've always followed college football, so I knew the history of Indiana pretty well. And but, you know, I felt like I had done this kind of turnaround at a couple other places I'd been, and, you know, was confident in, you know, my ability to attract the right people on the staff and recruit and get this thing humming. We've always had really good year one success, big turnarounds year one. And, you know, after the December signing period, because my first day on campus, we had 10 offensive starters in the transfer portal, half our defense. So we signed 22 transfers in December, but they were all 2-3 year starters at where they'd come from, good players, high character kind of guys, the right kind of people. I felt really confident before Christmas, you know, looking at our schedule and what we had recruited that, you know, we really could put a season together here. Now, you know, I think we made progress in the winter. I thought we made progress in spring, summer, fall camp, but you still got to put it on the field. And these guys have. You know, we're still in the middle of the race here, so I don't spend too much time looking back.
I heard you say that when you took over at IUP and took over Elon and also JMU, you had the old staff, you interviewed the old staff and had them rank the players on the roster 1 through 50 to figure out just sort of the lay of the land. How different is that when you get to Indiana, you get the rankings, but then some of these guys are already in the portal?
Well, I had to scratch a lot of names off that top 15. I'll tell you that, because they were already gone.
Yeah. Jeez.
But that's a roadmap, and it helps. And it's never 100% accurate. And people change year to year. They get better or they get worse. But, you know, it's sort of a starting point. And then, you know, you interview the old staff and you get their opinions on guys and stuff like that. So, you know, what's the ceiling? The ceiling's whatever we determine it'll be, and there's no self-imposed limitations. I mean, if you've got a plan and a process and you do the right things daily, you can get better every single day. The margin for error in this game is very slim. And so, like, I'm not the kind of guy that says, oh, yeah, well, you know, you can win 10 at Indiana, but that's BS. No. I mean, you prepare every week to be successful, and then you're on to the next challenge.
Curt, in the world of talent accumulation, I think it's probably a little bit easier now to, you know, recover from what you had to deal with day one in terms of attrition on the roster, right? You know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was how good are your recruiting classes out of high school and how good is your hit percentage and how good can you keep teams or players on your team. From a recruiting standpoint, how much does a fast start in year one boost your trajectory as a coach in a program? How important is it to, you know, convince the next set of players, the next wave of players that Indiana is an attractive place to go? And frankly speaking, I know your famous quote of someone asked, what's your sales pitch? Well, I've won a lot. Like, I thought that was really powerful, but like, what is the sales pitch past that to people who might be skeptical of whether or not Indiana has staying power in this certain situation moving forward?
Yeah. Well, nowadays with the portal, it is what it is. You have to adapt, adjust, and thrive within it, or you're not going to be in the game. In our particular situation, it kind of helped us out because I realized early on we needed a lot of new faces, and we recruited a lot of good players. Now, the JMU, there was a group of guys there that when I took this job, I never really entertained the thought right away that some of those guys may want to come. Listening to them, as soon as I told the team in the locker room, they had in their minds decided they wanted to come because they had chips on their shoulder. Like, why wasn't I recruited by Virginia Tech? And, those guys had won 5 championships in 5 years. So, we had needs. What did we have to sell? The only thing we really had to sell was sort of what we had done as a staff in the past in December. Offensively, our last 4 quarterbacks have been player of the year in the league on offense. We've had 2,000-yard receivers in the same season 2 last 3 years. Generally lead the conference in scoring. Defensively, been number 1 in the country at sacks, TFLs against the run, usually in the top 5. So those were the kind of selling points, that we had in the vision of where this program was going to go and what we thought we could get done year 1, which, a lot of the guys you bring in the portal, they only have a year or 2 left. So, they're looking for an opportunity to play on the biggest stage possible, but they want to be successful too. And they got to see themselves fitting into the scheme. So I think from that standpoint, it all came together. Now we're kind of going to be in this situation again next year because of all the portal guys we had to take in December and post spring. We got to hit it hard again. But I think every year you want to take 15 or 20 high school guys because that's the foundation. The more successful you are on the field, that's going to open doors to more and more recruits that those doors may not have been open 12 months ago. But at the end of the day, I really believe this. A lot of these guys, I know you rank them 2, 3, 4 stars, 5 stars. There's not a big difference between a lot of these guys. I mean, you got to have a certain amount of ability to play here and be successful at this level. And like, to me, the character, moldability, coachability, habits, what was his upbringing like? Did he have a good mentor? Overcoming success, failure, being persistent, resilient, good team guy, good teammate. Those are really important things to me. I was a recruiting coordinator and a coach at a young age. I made my mistakes a long, long time ago on potential and talent. They got to have the right stuff. And that's what I like about those guys that are 2 and 3 year starters at these other places is, I think there's an intangible factor about a guy that's 3 years in a row he started. He's played in every game. That means he's durable. That means he's got consistency in performance. He's trusted. Those kind of guys you win with.
How did you decide that Curtis Rourke was your guy? I mean, we've seen him play in MACtion in Ohio, and it's obviously his brother was very good in the MAC as well. But what you just said, how do you decide in the speed dating process of the portal that this is the guy who has the stuff I need to be my quarterback?
Yeah, and we've had all types be successful. We've had the pure dual guy and the pure pocket guy. He's closer to the pocket guy, obviously. First of all, you get a guy like that, he's in the portal. What's the first thing? I Google him, right?
Google me, I win.
Yeah, I mean, and he played a year in the MAC in 22, career stats. A lot of touchdown passes, very few interceptions, started a lot of games, won a lot of games, engineered a lot of 2-minute drives for touchdowns. You watch tape, you see a guy that can make the throws, but you can just tell on tape that he understands how to play quarterback. Some guys are wired to play quarterback. He grew up, brother was a quarterback, so he studied the position, obviously, and had a passion for it. And you could see those things show up on tape. And, after we talked a few times and he came on for his official visit, there was no doubt. We felt like, we could build around him. And, your offense is always going to change a little bit depending on who your quarterback is and, what else you have offensively. You got to be flexible in that regard. And, he's thrived. And all those guys that we've had, because the last 3 have been 1-year transfers, they all come in the first 2 weeks of spring and they struggle, and then they start to get it near the end of spring and camp. They're a different player. But you really see them. You really see what they're all about when the games start. You know what I mean? And we've been fortunate. All these guys have kind of stepped up and played at another level.
Curt, you've been watching your team evolve week by week, right? Like every win, every success, you build on those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
How has the temperament in the locker room, the belief that something special can happen here, evolved during this time period? And do you feel like your team is changing on a week-to-week basis for the better?
Well, I think
mentally?
our team has. I think we have a lot of confidence, but I also think that they understand. Most of them strongly understand that it is a process, and that every day, they've got to have a great meeting, a great practice. They got to put the work in, the time in, the effort. They got to have good habits off the field, get their sleep, eat right, all that good stuff. Do some extra film study and have themselves in the best position to be Saturday. And that's kind of the culture. And I think we've got a lot of guys on this team that are good leaders, played a lot of football, that get that.
I know you got a lot of stuff to do. Big game against Nebraska this week. So I just want to, before we let you go, I want to let you know about the stakes of this game. There's been a thing on the internet all year with fans of different teams saying, if my team loses, I'm going to. This one might top them all. This person named Scarlet and Cream says, if Indiana beats Nebraska, I'll shove an ear of corn up my ass. So just those are your stakes, Coach. That's what you're dealing with at noon on Saturday.
That wouldn't feel very good.
It would for you, though. Coach, thank you so much.
I'll see you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
I think he liked that better than the cigarette thing.
I think we need to normalize showing the coaches the irrational what I'll do tweets, because that was hilarious. Yeah.
That was great. Like, I would have enjoyed the Chris Kleiman burrito, like, or showing Kalani Sataki the burrito one.
Anytime anybody does this, we should just have the coach on the show to show them, because it could be a running bit for us, because they need to know what's at stake. It's not about.
Or imagine
Indiana
if we'd
wins.
had Mike Norvell on before the Boston College game. Coach, do you understand what's at stake here?
Because I'm fairly certain that if Indiana wins, like, Curt Cignetti will remember that. Like, in the back of his head, he'll think about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's thinking, is that guy shucking that ear of corn, or is it going with the shuck on? These are all things that need to be asked. So I am glad we asked him that.
Do you go boiled there or what? Like, what do you like? What's the move there? Do you like soften it up a little bit? Okay, we can move on.
Creamed. That's what you do. You shave it all off and you make creamed corn, and then you do it. I think the guy actually did the burrito. So
yeah,
I don't want to see that.
I've been meaning to go try to find that. I'll let you know how. After the show, I'm gonna go find it, and I'll let you know.
No, don't find it. Don't watch it. We don't need to see that. Just knowing it happened is enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, different preferences for different people, I guess.
All right, Ari. Before we get to your sauciest takes presented by Wendy's, we do have to talk about something that happened on the show yesterday. It was a kind of a stray, because we were talking to Nick Roush about Kentucky, but Nick seems to always veer the conversation toward Tennessee. I think Tennessee lives rent-free in Nick's head. But he dropped this about Nico.
This is fun. It's not always fun if you're for your specific team, but it is fun to point and laugh from afar. So Tennessee fans, I know you're out there. I know you want me to get triggered, but hey, I don't have an $8 million volleyball player who can't throw a go ball. So it's okay. It's okay, guys. Hypo system's fine. You're going to be fine. Maybe you'll find a quarterback who can hit some open receivers. It couldn't against Florida. You'll probably figure it out against Kentucky, but it's okay as long as you're not winning national titles. Doesn't look like you're going to be doing it with that guy. So fine by me. Have fun with that guy.
That's just cold. I also think it's a little premature. I mean, the dude's a first-year starter. Let's not go crazy here. But I will say I was a little taken aback watching the Florida-Tennessee game at how many open receivers were missed.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Nico. Let's have a Nico conversation heading into the Alabama game. So we're going to do this through the prism of his PrizePicks board this week. So if you haven't been playing PrizePicks, you hear about it all the time on the show. Best daily fantasy game in America. You download the app, you play $5, you get $50 instantly. And the way it works is you pick squares. You'll have a player. There'll be a stat attached to that player. It could be a college football player, NFL player, Major League Baseball, hockey, basketball. It doesn't matter. They got everything. They got darts. They got esports. You name it. So for Nico this week, some interesting numbers. His number for passing yards is 199.5. And you decide whether he's going to throw for more than that or less than that. And I think really what you're deciding is if you think Tennessee's going to win this game. Because if you get the same kind of performance that you got in the Florida game, they ain't beating Alabama. You're going to have to get a more consistent performance. More open receivers are going to have to be hit. And really, so on the PrizePicks app, when you pick a square, you can actually look at the stats from the last 5 games relative to that number. So his number is 199.5 passing yards. He has not had more than 199.5 passing yards since the NC State game, where he had 211. The Florida game, he had 169. But I'm thinking about this, Ari. So he needed another 31. That's really, there was one throw where a guy was wide open and he missed him that would have easily gotten that number. So we're only talking about 1 or 2 throws here could be the difference between Tennessee winning this game and losing this game.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's a pretty good sign if you're a Tennessee fan that the number's that high, right? I mean, to do that 199.5 when you're playing what's supposed to be one of the better defenses on your schedule, and you've only done it once, and the team you did it against has been giving up a lot of points to a lot of people. I think that bodes well for just the thought process of the game. My gut instinct here would be to go less than 199.5, not because I don't think Nico's good or that he can become more accurate or get over his freshman, lumps, but given his average output and the opponent, that seems like a pretty high number, doesn't it?
It doesn't, because of like you said, the opponent. Are you assuming Alabama's defense is good? Are we sure Alabama's defense is
better than NC State? Right? Like I'm assuming
it's better than NC State. I'm assuming it's better. Is it better than Florida played last week? And I don't know that Florida's defense is good either, but they shut down Tennessee.
I don't know.
Arkansas shut down Tennessee.
But I think that its ceiling is higher, right? Like where are we at?
The ceiling is much higher.
Defense? Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I think Florida played out of their mind on Saturday. So if Florida playing out of their mind is a 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 for Alabama's defense, then what happens if they play a 9? I don't know. So you like more than?
Oh, no, I like that if they're going to win the game. Now, here's another one that I think we should throw up. The passing plus rushing, 224.5. This is actually the easier one to tell, are they going to win the game or not? So Nico is a very athletic guy. He doesn't look to run, like he's not a run first kind of quarterback, but when he gets going, he can run really well. I think you saw that in the bowl game last year against Iowa, where he scored, several touchdowns on the ground. But since the NC State game, he has not really tried to run very much. So, the Arkansas game, he's got 11 rushing attempts, but a lot of that was scrambling, getting sacked, that sort of thing. So you go back to the NC State game where he ran 8 times for 65 yards. That's the best game they've played. That's also the best passing game he's had. That's the most comfortable he's looked throwing the ball all season. They need to get him running a little bit to get it. You always heard those quarterbacks are like, I got to take a hit before I really, feel in the flow. Like maybe that's what they need. Maybe that's what Nico needs to do is run a little bit, take a hit or two, and it settles him down and he throws better. Because I think he might be more efficient that way.
Yeah, or just like run just a quarterback draw right into the teeth of the defense on the first play of the game. Just let him get lit up. You know what I mean?
Listen,
I'm joking,
but I know you're joking. But like Alabama's going to run Jalen Milroe. Like
No, but I think that you're like, this is a more attractive square to me than just the passing one alone, because we do know that Nico can extend plays, right? Like I think that, it is easy to feel down on the freshman for the receivers that he missed, Andy, right? But like at the same time too, Tennessee beat Florida when he played, I think, semi poorly, right? Like this wasn't what you anticipate.
I wouldn't say semi poorly. I think just straight up poorly would be the right word for it. Yeah.
So that's like great for Tennessee. If your quarterback who is playing in his first year as a starter doesn't play well, and you beat an SEC team that played really well on defense,
plays best game on defense. Yeah.
Granted, Florida's got a laundry list of issues it's got to work through, and they shot themselves in the foot repeatedly. But you are in a position where you can learn from that, grow from that, and be ready to play in a game that's as big as this one. Now, 199.5 is going to tell the story of the game.
It is. And I'm curious to see if they run a little more, if they've decided that's not going to be part of the offense. I'm a little surprised, because as athletic as he is, you can use that a little bit. You don't have to lean on it, but you can use it a little bit. So, tell me how you feel about those numbers. 12.5 longest rush for Nico, less or more. Go to PrizePicks, download the app, use the code Staples, play $5, get $50 instantly. All right, Ari, it is time for Wendy's sauciest take. Wendy's, you've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs. Take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic, parm, or for your real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. It's only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. So grab some extra napkins, pick a flavor, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Ari, I need to know how you have 3 takes for me. Oh, what's our range here? We going like, because you can pick the spicy garlic parm instead of the regular garlic parm. Like, are we spicy garlic parm and up to spicy ghost pepper, or is there like a regular garlic parm in here?
They're all spicy.
Okay.
And I think it's possible that one might even reach ghost pepper for you. So you're going to have to tell me. Listen, before we go into this, I just want to remind everybody that we use these takes as a way to discuss issues or to discuss how we feel about things. So sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But I'm just going to let it rip. It's a podcast. We're here. We're friends. We're all having a good time. We're a family here on Andy and Ari. Let's start with number 1. Dan Lanning is a top 3 coach in America right now. Ooh, and I was thinking about this.
Spicy.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. And, we did joke a little bit about Bruce Feldman and Stuart Mandel's annual ranking of the coaches every summer, right? It's a fun middle of the summer piece. And if I were ranking the coaches from the standpoint of who I would want to build my program right now, I had a really hard time coming up with 2 other, or after you got through Steve Sarkisian and Kirby Smart, other slam dunk choices over him.
Dan Lanning and Curt Cignetti. There you go.
Yeah, and Curt Cignetti is somebody who should be pretty high on that list as well. Now, there are multiple ways to gauge success in the sport. There are people like Curt Cignetti, perfect example, had him on the show today, who have proven to accomplish more with less, okay? And then there are people that are at programs that are expected to win national championships or compete for them, especially conference championships, and they've shown through the entire job description that they can build a roster and win games that put their team in a position to do so. And Dan Lanning got his first signature win, and I think it's a good time to discuss this now that Oregon, has this win over Ohio State under its belt. But given what he has done from a building standpoint at Oregon since he left Georgia to be their coach, think about the transformation of the program. Think about what Oregon was in their first game and think about what they were on Saturday. Obviously, NIL is a part of this, and Oregon has a pretty nice NIL situation, so that's part of it. But he has recruited at a level where they built a roster that went pound for pound, play for play, blow for blow with Ohio State, a team that is reportedly spending $20 million plus on their roster. Who are you hiring right now who are you hiring right now if let's just come up with a random team. Okay. Not that they're leaving their coach, but like who would you hire to like run LSU's program?
If you had a team in Gainesville, Florida that aspired to win national titles?
Perfect.
Okay.
Gainesville, Florida. Like, I mean, in college football, just I don't know how you came. I don't know how I did not come up with it. That's the bigger question. But like, okay, if you could go hire anybody, pie in the sky in the sport, current sitting head coach, can you come up with 4 or 3 other names before him before you get the Lanning, if it were possible?
I don't think so. Because it's going to be Kirby, it's going to be Sark, which I still like. Sark's not a slam dunk either. With Sark and Dan Lanning, you've seen it, and you think, okay, if they keep doing this, then they really belong here. But Kirby's the only one you feel like absolutely belongs there. You don't see that with anybody else because you need to see it more with Sark and Lanning. But those are the 2 that I'd say have one, they've done it. Now they're starting to win those games, but also they've done it in this era and they've proven to be adaptable to this era. Or exactly. Well, in Lanning's case, not adaptable. He's sort of like Bane. Like he didn't adopt it; he was born into it.
So here's a comment I wanted to highlight. It's crazy, buddy. It's crazy. Everyone thinks that Lanning is a Nobel Prize winner now. I was at the game last year in Seattle, and they lost that game 100% because of Lanning's all gas, no break decision making. Let's relax. And I want people to understand that the decision to name him a top 3 coach isn't predicated solely on the fact that they beat Ohio State on Saturday. It's much
and also than that. I'll go back to that Washington game in Seattle. Other than not kicking the field goal at the end of the first half, his other go for it on 4th down decisions were correct. They just didn't execute.
It's the construction of a roster that was able to beat Ohio State that is impressive to me. It wasn't that they won the game. They are in a position to win that game on Saturday and ones into the future because of him being able to excel in the modern era of college football and assemble a roster during a very difficult time in which it is to do so. So like it's go back and be like, oh, he went for it on 4th down against Washington last year. And it's like, that's not the point. Okay. Like that's not the point at all. So if you want to like get micro,
well, actually it is the point to me, because if you do that, if you make the right analytical decision over and over, you're going to execute more of the time than you're not. So, I mean, he did it. That actually gives me more confidence in him than you'd think.
He did it against Ohio State. They didn't convert and they still won. Like, it's not just like they went for it on 4th down inside the 5-yard line and didn't convert it. Remember? So like, it's like, this is going to happen when you do those things. But anyway.
Zach says what Kiffin has done for Ole Miss is more impressive. They have 11 10-win seasons ever, and Kiffin has 2 of them. Ole Miss was 4-8, 5-7, 6-6. It's true, unless your goal is to get to 11, 12 wins national title, because Kiffin hasn't proven he can beat the really good teams yet. Like Lanning just beat a really good team. Lanning beat a superpower, and Kiffin hasn't beaten one yet.
And we thought that Ole Miss was going to be situated from a talent perspective in the same exact way as Oregon this year, right? Like they were at least in the same conversation. Now Oregon might be deeper. But Ole Miss has guys, and they haven't done that yet. So
Producer River asked, what's Kiffin's signature win at Ole Miss? And I think the answer to that is last year's LSU game, which was a shootout, but LSU wasn't an SEC title contender last year. They had the Heisman Trophy winner, but they had the worst defense in the country. So that it's not the same. Like Lanning's already moved past that because he beat Ohio State. So like Kiffin needs to beat Alabama or Georgia. Now, if Kiffin beats Georgia later this year, maybe we can have a discussion. Sark's already beaten Alabama. Like we can have a discussion. And I think like this is not, if you are anybody who's looking for a coach this year, because this is a really good conversation to have, it is very difficult to figure out who to hire because we're still only 3 years into the NIL era and the world is different now. Like you need coaches who understand this and who can work within this system. And there's not a big enough sample size to know who can. Lanning so far has been very good at it. Sark has been very good at it. It is going to be a lot of guesswork for teams that have job openings to figure out who can actually succeed.
And that's my list, by the way. Number 1, Kirby. Number 2, Sark. 3, Lanning. Like, those are the 3. So
who's 4?
That's impossible.
If
Me and River
we're going to complete Mount Rushmore, who's number 4?
Yeah. We argued about this for like 20 minutes and couldn't come up with a good answer.
Yeah, because it might be Ryan Day, actually.
I put Ryan Day into 4, and River was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I was like, I just don't know who else you would pick if it's not him. So, because Ryan Day has done the roster part, which is the hard part, but Ryan Day has failed in the game part, which is the only thing people care about part. So, Ryan Day could shoot up to number 2 if they win a national title this year. So, like, this is all in.
What about Kalen DeBoer?
We had Kalen DeBoer. Here are the coaches that we were discussing: Kalen DeBoer, Brian Kelly, Dabo Sweeney, and Ryan Day. Those are the 4. So, like, that said, it's just like Dabo Sweeney is one of the best coaches in our era. He has done something that no one else has done, which is turn a solid program into an elite superpower. But Dabo Sweeney has not proven, beyond the shadow of doubt, plenty of doubt there,
that he can operate in this era.
World. So, like, it's hard. Like, as you're ranking them, it's like easy to be like, yeah, well, James Franklin won a bunch of games at Vanderbilt 15 years ago. But it's like, that does nothing for me in the discussion of who's the best coaches now. So, like, this, we're 55 minutes into this. This could be an entire episode, and I'm sure it will be in the offseason. But Dan Lanning, to me, would have been in the top 3 even before he beat Ohio State. Like, this isn't a reaction to the Ohio State win. It is brought up during a time in which we're talking about him. So, like, that to me is, I think it's just an appropriate way to, like, give him his flowers, because I think he deserves it and, earned it on Saturday.
All right. I'm going to say that's like a spicy honey barbecue. It's got a little sweetness to it. Like, it's not all edge, because it's not far-fetched at all.
Yeah.
What's your next
take?
And
you think about the sport the exact same way, Andy. Like, we and you, like, I think, analyze it the same. I think it's hotter to a lot of people listening than it is to you. So we'll see. If you think it's hotter than Andy thought, let us know. Okay. Number 2, the college football playoff semifinal will only be Big Ten and SEC teams.
That's not spicy. That is regular garlic parm.
Really?
Of course it will.
So there's no team in your mind outside of those 2 conferences that can win 2 playoff games this year.
Nope. Maybe Miami, maybe Clemson, but probably not. That's going to depend on their draw.
Oh, no spice at all? Okay. All right.
No.
Well, I misread that.
It'd be more spicy if you said one of them was going to get in to the semifinals. One of those other ones.
Yeah, but I don't believe that.
Scott Aldrich says plain unflavored vegan nugs.
Oh, wow. That's my first flop of the take season. Okay. All right. I thought I had something there. Like,
well, here's the thing. And this is probably an example again of you and I kind of view the sport the same way. That's going to be hotter to a lot of other people. The people who are enraged by the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten are taking over the sport, or have taken over the sport, those people, that's going to piss them off, because they want to believe that group of 5 champ can maybe do it and be a Cinderella, or the ACC champ can do it. And maybe they can. Maybe Miami or Clemson can. But I've seen Clemson against Georgia, and they might have to play 2 Georgias to get to the semis.
Yeah.
They only have to play 1. Who knows?
Okay, so maybe it wasn't spicy, because now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I'm having a hard time coming up with who it could be, right? So, like, well, let's just look at the AP. Can you show my
bracketology again? So, in this week's bracketology, I have Miami against Notre Dame in the first round, Miami hosting that game. But then they have to play Texas in the Sugar Bowl in round 2.
Well,
so could they get past Texas?
Bracket, I think Clemson could make it to the semis if that's the way it looks.
Could they beat the winner of Penn State Texas A&M? Yes, I think they could.
I don't know if River has my bracket, because that's the one that I used when I did this. Look at the bottom there. There's no path in my bracket for any team that's not in those 2 conferences to get in.
Yeah, you need Iowa State to shock Georgia, and then all of a sudden Clemson has a path in there. But it's a little bit tougher.
Georgia after losing by 100 when they play.
I don't know if Penn State beat Indiana. Penn State, Oregon, I think would be
but then that would be the winner.
Oh, sorry, Penn. That's all Big Ten. What am I thinking? Yeah.
So anyway, but like if you hit River, put that back up. So we have Notre Dame, Kansas State, Pitt, SMU, Texas Tech. Like, I don't know who we're talking about here. Like, there's not even very many options to go off of right now. And like the Big 12 is kind of bubble heavy because there are a lot of teams that are still got good records, but that conference is going to sort itself out. And there's probably only going to be one or two at most that are even in the picture to begin with at the end of the year. So I just don't know who it's going to be. You're right. Okay. Those were naked wings, I guess.
Those are they're the regular. Like, listen, sometimes you don't want the spice. You just want the savory. And that's where the regular garlic parm comes in. I think that the spicy garlic parm is kind of a cheat code because it gives you the best of both worlds there. The spicy, savory, and like, but it's a little bit different flavor than, say, spicy buffalo, which everybody's accustomed to.
Yeah. Okay. Last take then, Andy. And you know, I don't know if this is going to be spicy for you.
By the way, I am getting Wendy's Nuggs for lunch and possibly for dinner.
I might get them too, actually. I want one of those like Wendy's gold cards. Like it's like an Amex black card, but with an Wendy's logo is already in. We got to look into how to do that.
I got
Oregon and Ohio State will play 3 times this year.
Okay. So we're going with the opposite of this will be the only Oregon Ohio State matchup. That's a spicy take. So what you're saying is Ohio State's going to beat Penn State, because if Ohio State doesn't beat Penn State, that eliminates your second potential Oregon Ohio State matchup. That probably knocks Ohio State out of the Big Ten championship game. So November 2nd, in-state college. That's a big one for Ryan Day. Big one for Ryan Day. This is kind of spicy because I think before the Oregon game, I would have said, I don't think so. I think Ohio State's definitely going to at least split those 2 games. They couldn't lose them both. I can see Ohio State losing both of those now. It is a possibility in my mind. But then them playing a third time. So the second time I can definitely see them playing, because that would be Ohio State beats Penn State, runs the table the rest of the way. They play in the Big Ten title game. And then it just depends on what side of the bracket you get on. If you get on the same side of the bracket, there's a high probability that Oregon and Ohio State would meet.
I'll take it a step further. Ohio State and Oregon will play 3 times, even if they're on opposite ends of the bracket.
That they'll play for the national championship.
If it goes that way.
That's spicy ghost pepper right there. Because that means one of them's beating Texas. That means one of them's beating Georgia. That's spicy.
The draw would have to be right? Like, I think the draw would have to be right, but I think that we watch.
The draw would have to be right, but you're eventually going to run into one of those.
Yes. Yeah. And it's possible one of them would have to run into 2. So that's what I mean by draw being right. Like, you don't want to have to play both of them one team might lose if they have to play both.
Yeah. Your original take is spicy buffalo. That version of it where they play for the national title is spicy ghost pepper.
Well, let me ask you, and I don't know, we were coming back from the Red River game. We were watching the game on the phone while driving around a carnival. So like
you were driving, I was watching the game on the phone. It was we were all being very safe.
But I've gone back and watched large clips of it after, because I wrote a column about Ohio State today and how it's not time to give up on Ryan Day if you're down on him. Did we not watch the 2 best teams so far? Like outside of Texas, right? Like I think that you can make a case that these are 2 of the 3 best teams.
No,
you don't think so?
We just watched Texas play, so they're not I don't think they're definitely the 2 best teams. Georgia's played.
Was that the highest level football game of the year?
No.
Don't say Alabama or Georgia. I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to go.
Maybe it was Alabama, Georgia.
I thought that
they
game
still could.
Was 2 teams.
Are you sure if Alabama played Ohio State?
Oh no,
that Ohio State would win.
No.
Okay.
God, no.
Okay.
No.
We're not even considering Alabama in the top 2 of the SEC, by the way.
Yeah. I thought it was the highest level football game I've watched all year.
I thought I saw a lot of receivers running wide open deep.
I think that it was high level players making high level plays on both sides of the ball. I don't know, but I took away from that game that Oregon can compete with the other big monsters of the sport I already think Ohio State can. Them losing that game doesn't change anything. This take is more about
fair.
Oregon proving that it can. So, but yeah,
that's fair. But now Ohio State has to come back and prove it. It's not the onus is on Ohio State from this point forward.
Buddy, it's hard to tell the future. But I listen, if Ohio State lost to Alabama beating anybody is not surprising. Alabama could go beat the Bengals for all I care. Like, they're really deep and talented and fun. They're seem dysfunctional in places right now. They're not playing high-level football, but if Alabama shows up and plays high-level football, there's nobody in college football they can't beat. The same is true for Georgia. The same is true for Ohio State. And now the same is true for Oregon. I think that I wouldn't have been 100% certain in saying that before the weekend. So we added a new team into the super team mix, which then allows me to get to the point where I think they will absolutely play again in the Big Ten championship game. I don't think there's any other team in the Big Ten that can play with these two teams. And we'll find out in 2 weeks or whatever they play Penn State. And then if the bracket lines up correctly, it's just a way of saying that I think Oregon is a lot better than I gave them credit for going into last weekend. And I think that they're going to.
We're also going to learn a lot about Nebraska in the next 2 weeks because they've got Indiana this week and then they've got Ohio State. So we're going to figure out exactly how good that defense is. I don't foresee Nebraska beating Ohio State. But I am very curious to see Ohio State against Nebraska's defense.
The thing about Ohio State, and if you put up the Big Ten standings again, River, I want to look at this. Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State are all going to have played Ohio State. If Ohio State wins out, they will have beaten Penn State and Indiana.
Correct.
But
and Nebraska, which is above
there are a few teams that Ohio State does not play. I think Illinois is one of them, where if Illinois were to win out, they might hold tiebreakers that go down the list there. So, like, I don't think Ohio State 100% controls its destiny to make the Big Ten championship game. I think that there are some weird, wacky former Big Ten West teams that would maybe hold tiebreakers. But, like, it would be kind of funny to think that if Ohio State went out and didn't play the Big Ten championship game, that is like there's a sliver of possibility that could happen.
Yeah, I think that because their schedule's a little bit harder, they would probably get. I'm trying to remember exactly how the tiebreakers work, but they favor the team that has the harder schedule, and so I think Ohio State's conference schedule being harder than Illinois' conference schedule or Indiana's conference schedule is going to be helpful to them. But now, obviously, they do play Indiana, so they'll have the head-to-head if they beat them there. So. I can't wait. I can't believe we're talking about this. I cannot believe we're talking about Ohio State's potential to make the Big Ten title game relative to Illinois and Indiana.
You have to rank the takes, Andy.
This is easy. The three times, fool. That one, that is the spiciest. The spicy ghost pepper version of it, where they play for the national title in the third meeting.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate. Number two is the Dan Lanning take. I tend to agree with it, but I think you're right. I agree with you because we look at the game the same way. There are going to be a lot of people who are like, what are you talking about? And then the third one, that only the Big Ten and the SEC will make the semifinals. That is the blandest of the takes.
Yeah, so
no spice.
Still tasty, but
well, that's the thing. The regular garlic parm is delicious.
I know.
So it all depends on what mood you're in. If you want to go regular garlic parm or spicy garlic parm, or maybe you don't want to go all that savory, maybe you want to go a little sweeter and you go spicy barbecue. That's the tricky part there. You just have to decide what kind of mood you're in, or you get 5 of one and 5 of another and 5 of another and 5 of another. Did I just have you eat 20 nugs?
I think
that's a lot of nugs.
Yeah. I think I could.
I know I could do it.
Yeah,
I know I could do that one. We've had that with another chicken nugget brand where I tried to eat as many as I could during a show. We're not going to do that again because that damn near killed me. So, but that's okay. Ryan, what is the take level of a nugget dipped in Frosty? Actually, that's your semifinal take. That's a spicy nug, a saucy nug dipped in a Frosty.
Yeah, the dipping in the Frosty is a very regular thing. It's just not something I've ever done.
My wife was a big fries and Frosty person when she was pregnant. Yeah. when she was pregnant, Fries and Frosty all the time.
Yeah.
All right, Ari, tomorrow is Thursday, our favorite day of the week. It is a Dear Andy and Ari day. Get those questions. And we've already got a few really good ones, but you know how to find us. I am at Andy_Staples on Twitter and Instagram. He is at Ari Wasserman on Twitter and Instagram. You can email AndyStaplesOn3@gmail.com if you have a truly epic question or you want to send one in on video. By all means, we love your questions. We love it when you drive the show. On Thursday, we'll also have a Texas-Georgia preview. And should Jackson Arnold redshirt, or should Oklahoma even be having that conversation with him right now? Talk about that on tomorrow's show.